The first time our Avmeda saw Mira Kapoor, it was raining. Not the gentle drizzle that perfumes the earth, but a relentless monsoon that blurred the city into watercolor. He had been sitting under the awning of a street cafe, sketching a bridge design on a wet napkin, when she dashed in, soaked, breathless, clutching a broken umbrella like a defeated warrior. Her laughter, soft and unguarded, filled the tiny space. It was the kind of sound that lingered in the air even after the rain stopped. She asked if she could share his table, and without waiting for his answer, she did. That was Mira, bold, bright, and beautifully reckless. From that moment, Arev's life began to revolve around her in quiet orbits. He was a man of structure, blueprints, deadlines, rules. She was chaos in silk scarves and half-finished sketches, yet somehow their worlds fit together. What started as coffee and conversation turned into long nights spent designing together, dreaming of building spaces that meant something. They called their shared dream *** Artemis Designs, ***, a name Mira chose because, she said, even the moon has scars and it still shines. Years passed in a blur of sketches, laughter, and shared victories. Arev built foundations, Mira painted visions. They weren't just lovers, they were partners, equals in ambition and affection. He'd find notes on his desk that read, one day we'll change skylines together. He believed every word. Arev had come from nothing, the son of a schoolteacher from Lucknow, carrying dreams too big for his pockets. Mira, on the other hand, was born into comfort, but she loved the way Arev saw the world, steady, hopeful, and unafraid of hard work. Her parents didn't approve at first, but success has a way of silencing doubts. Within a few years, they'd earned recognition in Delhi's architectural circles. Then came Rishabh Malhotra smooth, charming, and rich beyond measure. He entered their lives as a potential investor. Tall, confident, with a smile that hinted he always got what he wanted, Rishabh saw potential in Artemis Designs. Arev welcomed him with open arms. Mira did too, though her smile lingered a little longer when Rishabh was in the room. It started small, extra meetings between Mira and Rishabh for project coordination. Late-night texts that Arev never questioned. He trusted her completely, and when she said, you work too much, Arev, let me handle the clients, he believed she was helping. One evening, Arev came home early, after a client canceled a meeting. He found Mira in their studio, typing something quickly on her laptop. She looked startled when he entered, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face, before she smiled and shut the screen. Just emails, she said, walking to him and slipping her arms around his waist. You look tired. He brushed away his unease. Love has a way of quieting suspicion. Days turned into weeks, and Arev noticed small shifts. Her perfume smelled different, her laughter sounded practiced, her phone faced down more often. But every time he questioned his own intuition, Mira's warmth disarmed him. One Sunday morning, while having coffee on their balcony, Mira spoke suddenly, staring out at the rising sun. Arev, she said, do you ever think we're meant for something bigger than this? Like, maybe we've outgrown this small, firm thing? He smiled gently. Isn't that what we've been building together? She nodded, but didn't look at him. The silence that followed said everything words didn't. A few weeks later, Rishabh invited them to a high-profile gala at a 5-star hotel. The night shimmered with crystal chandeliers and champagne laughter. Arev watched Mira glide across the floor, her silver gown catching the light. She seemed radiant, alive in a way he hadn't seen in months. And when Rishabh approached her, she smiled in a way that broke something quiet inside him. Still, he convinced himself it was nothing. Trust, he reminded himself, was the strongest foundation. But foundations crack long before they fall. Late one night, Arev returned to the office to retrieve some files. The lights were still on. He walked in quietly and froze. Through the glass wall of the conference room, he saw Mira and Rishabh standing close, their voices low. Papers lay scattered on the table. He couldn't hear everything, only fragments. He'll never find out. The transfer's ready. We just need to sign under the new firm name. Then Rishabh's hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away. Arav left before they saw him. His chest felt hollow, like an unfinished room echoing with absence. He drove through the sleeping city until dawn, the skyline blurring into nothing. When he returned home, Mira was there, asleep, her head resting peacefully on his pillow. He stood by the window for a long time, watching the city wake up, feeling his heart break quietly, like the first silent crack in a perfect wall. He told himself he must have misunderstood, that Mira, his Mira, could never do this. Love, after all, blinds even the wisest architects. That morning she stirred and smiled at him, sleepy and innocent. "Why are you up so early?" He forced a smile. "Just thinking about a new design." She kissed his cheek and whispered, "You and your buildings don't ever change, Arav." He didn't reply, because deep down he knew everything was about to. The morning it all fell apart began like any other. Arav left home early, the city still yawning under the pale light of dawn. Mira was asleep, her hair scattered across the pillow like dark ink on white paper. He paused for a moment, memorizing her face, the soft curve of her lips, the peace he thought they shared. If only he had known it was the last time he'd look at her with love instead of questions. He arrived at the office to find the door unlocked. A faint smell of perfume lingered her perfume. Inside, the space was in disarray, drawers open, files missing, and the server screen blinking with error codes. He frowned, trying to steady the unease rising in his chest. Then he saw the letter. On his desk lay a crisp white envelope with his name, *Arav Mehta*, written in Mira's handwriting. His fingers trembled as he opened it. The message inside was short, almost cruelly so. "I'm sorry. You wouldn't have understood. This is business, Arav. I hope one day you can forgive me." Mira, that was it. No explanation, no goodbye. The next few hours unfolded like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Calls flooded in, banks, clients, investors, all demanding answers. Documents he'd never signed had apparently transferred ownership of *Artemis Designs* to a new firm, *Malhotra and Kapoor Designs. Every file, every project, every design he'd built from scratch. Gone, the betrayal wasn't just personal, it was absolute. When he tried calling Mira, her number was disconnected. Rishabh's office claimed he was out of the country. By afternoon, the news broke. Rising architectural stars Mira Kapoor and Rishabh Malhotra announced new partnership. Visionary firm Malhotra and Kapoor Designs aims to redefine Indian luxury architecture. A photo accompanied the headline, Mira and Rishabh, standing side by side, smiling. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, her eyes shining in a way Arav hadn't seen in months. He stared at the screen until the image blurred. Everything he had worked for, every dream, every late night, every sketch born from love had been stolen. Not by a stranger, but by the woman he had trusted more than anyone in the world. Days passed in fragments. One moment he was furious, the next numb. Sometimes he'd walk into their old office, hoping it was a mistake that she'd be there, smiling, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But the silence only mocked him. Friends distanced themselves, wary of the rumors that spread. Arav Mehta, accused of financial fraud and document forgery. Investors claimed he had misused funds. Contracts were canceled. His name was now whispered with pity, sometimes contempt. The media loved the scandal, the fall of a genius architect. He tried fighting back, hiring lawyers, digging through the mess. But every piece of evidence pointed against him. The signatures, the transfers, even the digital trail, all led back to him. Mira and Rishabh had been meticulous. One night, exhausted and hollow, Arav found himself at the cafe where he'd first met Mira. The same corner table, the same flickering light. The city outside was alive with noise, but inside there was only silence. He remembered her laughter that day, the way she'd said, asterisk, "You look like someone who builds dreams," asterisk he had. And she had torn them down. For the first time, he allowed himself to cry not the angry tears of betrayal, but the quiet kind, the ones that come when you realize the person you die for was never really yours. Weeks turned into months. Arav disappeared from Delhi's social circles. Rumors said he had left the country, others said he'd gone mad. In truth, he lived quietly in a small rented room near the edge of the city, spending his days sketching on cheap paper, not buildings but memories, fragments of a life that no longer existed. He kept one photograph of them on the table, Mira leaning on his shoulder, both smiling, a half-built model of a house between them. He couldn't bring himself to throw it away. One evening, while sorting through his old drives, he stumbled upon a folder he didn't recognize. Inside were files Mira had hidden, correspondence, drafts, transaction records. And there, among them, he found proof digital signatures, messages between her and Rishabh, evidence that they had planned the entire thing months before the betrayal. He read every message, every word. With each line, something inside him hardened. The grief burned away, leaving behind something colder, sharper. It wasn't rage. Rage was fleeting. It was purpose. He realized they hadn't just stolen his company. They'd stolen his identity, his name, his dignity, but names can be rebuilt. Revenge, though, that required patience. He looked at their photo again. For the first time, he didn't feel pain, only clarity. If they took my heart, he whispered, I'll take their peace. In the months that followed, Arav vanished completely. No one knew that he'd taken a new name, moved abroad, and begun working quietly with an international architectural conglomerate. His designs caught global attention, bold, intricate, hauntingly beautiful. He no longer designed for clients. He designed for asterisk control. Asterisk every sketch, every blueprint became a piece of his plan, a structure of revenge, built brick by brick. And far away, in shining towers and magazine covers, Mira Kapoor and Rishabh Malhotra thrived, unaware that the man they'd buried was already rebuilding himself, stronger, colder, and waiting for the right moment to return. 3 years later, the city had forgotten his name. But ghosts never really disappear. They just learn to wear new faces. Arav Mehta was dead. In his place lived asterisk Aaron Dev asterisk, an elusive architectural consultant with an international reputation for reviving failing projects and turning them into icons. His designs appeared in magazines, his name whispered in elite circles. A mystery man with quiet confidence and eyes that never gave away what he was thinking. He had built an empire of silence, no interviews, no personal life, no trace of the man who once laughed too easily and loved too deeply. Now he was back in Delhi. As his car rolled through the city, he saw familiar streets, but they no longer felt like home. Every corner carried memories, laughter, betrayal, the faint echo of Mira's voice. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Ghosts weren't meant to feel, only to haunt. That evening, Aaron attended a gala at the Imperial, hosted by none other than asterisk Malhotra and Kapoor Designs. Asterisk the irony tasted sweet. The hall shimmered with gold and champagne. Mira stood near the stage, radiant as ever, wearing a crimson gown that demanded attention. Time had deepened her beauty, but dulled her light. Her smile looked like it had been painted on, perfect but hollow. Beside her, Rishabh Malhotra was the picture of arrogance, sharp suit, expensive watch, and an ego that could fill the room. When Aaron entered, heads turned. He was the man everyone wanted to meet, the mysterious genius investor rumored to be backing major European projects. Even Rishabh's expression flickered with curiosity. Mira's glass paused halfway to her lips. Her eyes found him across the room, and for a second her world stilled. There was something achingly familiar in the tilt of his head, the calmness in his posture. But when he smiled politely and extended a hand, she faltered. "Aaron Dev," he said smoothly, A pleasure to finally meet you both. I've heard much about your firm. Rishab grinned, oblivious. Ah, the man of the hour. We've been hoping to collaborate. Our new luxury township project could use a mind like yours. Aaron nodded. Perhaps I'm looking for something worth investing in. His eyes flicked briefly to Mira, and someone worth trusting. She looked away, color draining from her face. Over the next few weeks, Aaron Dev became part of their world quietly, expertly. He attended meetings, offered insights, won over clients. Rishab admired his genius, seeing him as a key to bigger contracts. Mira kept her distance, but her discomfort grew. Every word Aaron spoke, every glance he gave, seemed to touch something buried deep in her, something she thought she had buried years ago. He played his role perfectly, never too friendly, never too distant. He let Rishab brag, let him take credit, even encouraged his overconfidence. The more Rishab trusted him, the easier it became to pull the strings. Arav's revenge wasn't about dramatic confrontations or public humiliation. It was about erosion, slow, precise, invisible. He began subtly undermining Rishab's credibility with investors, feeding small concerns during private meetings. He restructured deals in ways that benefited him but seemed generous. He leaked selective details to journalists, nothing too obvious, just enough to plant doubt about the firm's stability. Meanwhile, Mira found herself haunted by guilt. She couldn't explain why Aaron's voice sounded like home, why his eyes seemed to see right through her. One evening, she confronted him after a client dinner. "Who are you really?" she asked quietly, blocking his path. "You don't sound like a stranger." He studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps you've known too many men who lie." Her breath caught. "That's not fair." "Fairness," he murmured, stepping closer, "is a luxury only the innocent can afford." For a heartbeat, their eyes met, her guilt colliding with his restraint. Then he walked away, leaving her trembling in the corridor. Behind the scenes, cracks began to show in Rishab and Mira's empire. Key investors withdrew, government permits stalled, anonymous reports of financial inconsistencies reached the media. Rishab blamed Mira for leaking information, accusing her of being careless. Their once glamorous partnership turned into quiet warfare. Mira started drinking alone at night, staring at old designs, Arav's designs, the ones she had stolen. She remembered the way he used to draw lines with care, saying, "Every structure is a promise. You don't build one you plan to abandon." Her reflection in the mirror seemed to mock her. She had everything of fame, money, luxury, and yet she had never felt so hollow. One night, she received a file anonymously in her inbox. Inside was a photograph, her and Rishab signing those forged papers years ago, and a single line typed beneath it. "Do you remember what you built this on?" Her hands shook. She knew exactly who had sent it. The next day, she arrived early at the office and found Aaron waiting for her. "You're him," she whispered, voice breaking. "You're Arav." He looked up, calm as ever. "You took 3 years to recognize me. I suppose I should take that as a compliment." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? Is this your revenge?" He smiled faintly. "Revenge? No, Mira. I'm just giving back what you gave me: uncertainty, fear, loss. Fair trade, isn't it?" She reached for his hand, desperate. "Arav, I made a mistake. Don't," he said softly, pulling away. "Mistakes are accidents. What you did was design." He walked past her, leaving her in silence. As he exited, he glanced back once, and for a brief moment, she saw the man she had loved, buried under years of pain and control. But the warmth was gone, replaced by something colder, clarity. That night, Mira confessed everything to Rishab, terrified of what Arav might do next. But Rishab only laughed, brushing it off. "He's bluffing. No one can touch us now." He was wrong. Arav had already begun the final phase of his plan, one that would turn their empire into ashes before they even saw the smoke. Rishab Malhotra believed he was untouchable. He had power, money, and a company that glittered across skylines. But like every structure built on deceit, it only needed one weak beam to collapse, and Arav had already removed it. The downfall began quietly. It started with a whisper among investors, rumors that Malhotra and Kapoor Designs had manipulated tenders and forged environmental clearances. At first, Rishabh dismissed them, but within days, government auditors arrived. Then came the calls from clients, the frozen accounts, the contracts canceled pending investigation. By the time Rishabh realized it was deliberate, it was already too late. In a sterile conference room filled with panic, Mira sat silently as Rishabh raged, throwing files and blaming her for everything. "This is your fault," he shouted. "You brought him into this. You let him in." Her voice was calm, almost detached. "You don't understand, Rishabh. He didn't need my help. He's smarter than both of us combined." The next morning the newspapers screamed, architectural empire crumbles. Malhotra and Kapoor under fraud investigation. Whistleblower reveals years of forgery, embezzlement. Whistleblower's name was never revealed, but those who looked closely would have noticed the careful precision with which every document, every report, every hidden trail had been laid bare, as if the architect behind it knew how to dismantle a structure from its foundation. Arav watched it all from his glass office high above the city. He didn't smile. There was no thrill in victory, only quiet relief, the kind that comes when a storm finally ends. His assistant knocked softly. "Sir, the Malhotra firm has declared bankruptcy. They're under investigation. The media says a mess. Kapoor has resigned." Arav nodded without looking up. "Let them rest," he said simply. When the door closed, he sat in silence for a long time. On his desk lay the photograph he had kept all these years, the one of him and Mira, young and hopeful, building dreams on a kitchen table. He traced the edges once, then tore it cleanly in two. 2 days later, Mira came to see him. It was raining again, just like the day they met. Her hair was drenched, her eyes swollen from crying. The receptionist hesitated, but Arav gestured for her to let Mira in. She stepped inside slowly, her heels clicking on the marble floor, her voice trembling. "So it was you," she whispered. "You did all this." He looked up from his desk. "You built it. I just redesigned it." She let out a shaky laugh, part despair, part awe. "I thought revenge would make you cruel, but you're calm." "I was cruel," he said softly, "just not in the way you think. I let you feel what I felt: doubt, fear, loss. That's enough." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You could destroy me, Arav. You still can." He stood, walking toward her until they were only a breath apart. For a moment the air between them filled with everything unspoken: love, regret, memories that refused to die. Then he said, "I didn't come back to destroy you, Mira. I came back to end you in my heart." She closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face. "I did love you once," he smiled sadly, "and I believed you once. That's the difference between us. I don't live in the past anymore." He reached into a drawer and handed her an envelope. Inside were legal documents, her share of whatever remained of the company, and a letter. "You don't owe me anything," it read. "You took what you wanted, and I took what I needed: peace." When she looked up, Arav was standing by the window, watching the rain blur the skyline. She asked, her voice breaking, "What happens now?" He didn't turn. "You rebuild if you can, and I forget." Weeks later, news spread quietly that Mira Kapoor had left the city. No one knew where she went. Some said she moved abroad. Others said she gave up architecture altogether. Rishabh, meanwhile, faced criminal charges and vanished from public life entirely. The empire they'd built with greed and deceit had turned to dust. And Arav, he moved forward, not into grand success or public triumph, but into peace. He started a new foundation for underprivileged architecture students, naming it Artemis Trust **, not after Mira, but after the idea she once believed in, **, that beauty can grow from scars. **. The day the first branch opened, he stood before a group of students and said quietly, "Never build anything on betrayal, not even your dreams. It always collapses." They clapped, unaware of the weight behind those words. That night, he sat alone on the same cafe balcony where it had all begun. The rain had stopped. The city lights shimmered like distant stars reflected on wet streets. He closed his eyes, letting the breeze wash over him. For the first time in years, his chest didn't feel heavy. Mira's face still lingered in his memory, not as a wound, but as a lesson. He realized he didn't hate her anymore. He didn't love her either. She was simply part of the design, a chapter finished, a structure completed. As dawn broke, the sky turned gold. Arav smiled faintly to himself. "Every scar," he whispered, "is proof that something tried to break you and failed." And for the first time in a very long time, he felt free.